Hello, welcome to Insight Sports Talk with your host, Joanna Rosali. Good evening, everyone, on this beautiful Tuesday night. We are back. We were away for a little bit, but happy to be back and back with my co host, Ed Cole. How are you?
Good evening, Joanna. How are you? Happy
I am
Tuesday evening.
good. Happy Tuesday. Yes, almost Wednesday.
Yes, which means it's one day closer to the weekend. Hooray.
And yes it is. One day closer to the weekend for those looking forward to it. I know many of us are. I know I am for many reasons in particular and so much sports action. But I'm good to be back and back on with you, Ed. I missed you.
Missed you too, sis. The,
Thanks.
the weeks are not complete when we don't do a complete Insight Sports Talk show together. But now that everything's rolling with football, basketball is about to start up. We got the playoffs coming in Major League Baseball. Your baby Joanna, see how she's smiling? She's thinking about her baby is about to start soon. It's gonna be great.
So yes, a lot to talk about, Ed. So I know let's go ahead and kick it off with some NBA hot topic of I want to say the day with vaccinations and how that's been, just unraveling since yesterday afternoon. Starting off with Kyrie Irving, where he's saying that he will not release and he will not comment, taking a personal stance to whether he's been vaccinated or not, or making any further comment on that. We also have the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who's also been how what would you say? He's just outspoken about the whole
Oh,
entire
yes, very,
situation,
very vocal.
and yes, very very vocal about it, and saying that all players and all staff who are not vaccinated to be removed from the teams. Um, he goes on to say, and this is a comment that he made on a national news channel, there's no room for players who are willing to risk the health and lives of their teammates, the staff, and the fans simply because they are unable to grasp the seriousness of the situation or do the necessary research. So, so this has been just very, very hot. NBA, we have about 90% of the players who are vaccinated. There's about 40 players that are not. But it's just been very controversial over the last 24, 32 hours since this news broke, Ed. So I don't know how NBA is going to handle this. I know they're wanting to institute a vaccine mandate, but I don't know that they'll be able to do it in as easily in a way that they thought that they would happen.
I don't think so either because the Players Association would have to agree to that, and I don't think that with Kyrie Irving being the vice president of the National Basketball Players Association and him being not really giving his information on whether he's vaccinated or not, his feelings on the situation, I don't know if that's really going to go through. It is kind of a funny situation because the NBA staff members on NBA teams and referees are required to be vaccinated, yet the players aren't required to. And the NBA released some tentative health and safety protocols to their teams today on Tuesday. And among the rules for the unvaccinated players, Joanna, like a Bradley Beal or like an Andrew Wiggins for the San Francisco for the Golden State Warriors. I was about to say the San Francisco Warriors, but the Golden State Warriors. So according to this article on NBA.com, the unvaccinated players will not be able to eat in the same room with the vaccinated teammates or the staff. They have to have lockers as far away from the vaccinated players as possible. They have to stay masked and at least 6 feet away from any other attendees in the team meeting. And also, the unvaccinated players will have to remain at their residence when they're in their home market in their home city, and they'll also need to stay on team hotel properties when they're on the road. And there's other limited situations where these unvaccinated players, they're just trying to distance the unvaccinated players, clearly, Joanna, from the vaccinated players. They're just trying to maintain their product. They're trying to make sure the players that are vaccinated, like a LeBron James, who just admitted that he got vaccinated, so he is the most high profile of all NBA players that got vaccinated. I know he said he was kind of on the fence on whether he was going to get vaccinated or not, Joanna, but he talked to his family and he decided that he was going to get the vaccine. So it's just the NBA is trying to get ahead of this thing, Joanna. They're trying to meet this thing at the head before it gets really out of control. And you've got teams that are losing. They're losing themselves because they've got these conflicts with players that are vaccinated and players that are not. And now you've got this friction because they're like, okay, well, why are these guys with us when we're vaccinated? We got the vaccine, but these guys decided not to. They shouldn't be around us. And then it just creates problems. It creates chemistry issues, doesn't it, Joanna?
Yes, and that's exactly what's starting to happen here as we're just a little bit over a week away from the preseason kicking off. Right now they're, in camp, they are, training. Kareem did go on to say that, just adding to that is that players should be disciplined. In which way, that's going to be whether that's a league wide of what they decide, how they decide to reprimand players. For those that do decide to not be vaccinated, that would be aside from the safety protocols that you just mentioned, Ed. But there's also staffers that are raising their own concerns. And on top of that, we also have cities or states or counties that are updating their laws or making, removing exemptions as well. So which is affecting a lot of these teams, NBA teams, in which is the situation with Kyrie Irving. He's not with the team due to exactly that, with New York and what they have set for those protocols or those, that mandate that they have. So he will be with the team when they are in, I think, California. I don't recall, but when they go out of state, he will be able to join the team there. But the league is pushing for mandatory vax. There's a lot of pushback right now, but I don't think that you can, in my opinion, I don't think that you can force someone, for whatever reason, if it's personal or medical, you can only do so much, that's as far as we can really go, or someone's willing to, do the research and they can do the best thing for them.
Yes. And so when it comes to New York and San Francisco, those are two of the biggest cities that have those mandates, Joanna. So now that's going to apply to Kyrie Irving because so in essence, he won't be able to play at all at the Barclays Center because obviously Brooklyn's in the state of New York. So Kyrie's going to be out for 41 home games. He won't be eligible to play those games. Andrew will not be able to play for the Golden State Warriors because San Francisco is one of those cities that is the home city now of the Golden State Warriors. So how is that going to affect the Brooklyn Nets and the Golden State Warriors and any other player on those teams? Possibly, maybe there's some important players on the New York Knicks that aren't vaccinated, so they won't be able to play as well. So that's really going to hurt those individual basketball teams because those players decided not to get vaccinated. So now you're really hindered, especially with Brooklyn. If Kyrie can't play those home games, just imagine I know that's a deep basketball team, but if you're missing Kyrie Irving for 41 home games, unless he decides to change his course of action on this vaccination situation, I don't know I don't know how Steve Nash is going to work this situation out. This is a real one of the biggest major first hurdles for Steve Nash in his head coaching situation with year 2 with the Nets.
Yeah, this is something that coaches, teams, front offices are going to have to deal with, and it's just going to be a domino effect. It's going to affect the teams tremendously, like you're saying, with players missing out due to not being vaccinated. So it's going to affect them in not only in a way of playing, winning and losing games, but it's going to affect them in a chemistry type of way. It, is this traveling wise, same thing. It's going to affect them all around.
It is. So do you think eventually the Players Association will come around and say, okay, men, all the ones that aren't vaccinated, it's now mandated that you have to get vaccinated or suffer the consequences, i.e. possible, I don't know if they would implement suspensions or fine the players that continue to not be vaccinated? Do you think that would ever come around to that, or is it just we're just going to be in this situation for the time being as we play this thing out day by day with the season?
I think that is going to be something that's going to have to be played out. I don't believe that the Players Association is going to say, "Hey, you have to deal with the consequences." They're there to protect their players in any which way, So I don't see that. I do see possibly the league going in a way. Okay, you choose not to be vaccinated. Okay, you're not going to participate in these games. You will be, you will not be in the arena. You will not be, training, practicing with the team, whatever it may be. Fines. I do see that happening in, coming from a league perspective. Coming from a players association, I don't see that there's gonna force its players to, hey, you have to go out and get vaccinated. And I hope that they do come between the league and the players association to come to some type of agreement. Hopefully sooner rather than later, before this tends to bleed on to and affect many that it shouldn't have to.
And say, Joanna, New York and San Francisco, these cities that have these mandates, they continue to grow. Say it's Chicago, say it's Dallas, say it's Miami, say it's Phoenix here, say it's LA, that all these cities that have NBA teams have this mandate. Now, how's that going to affect other basketball teams who have players that aren't vaccinated? How's that going to affect their roster and their playing status on all these home games? It could have a serious ripple effect.
Yeah. And I just don't see these players, if that's the case, playing or being part of a team at all.
Yeah, at least for the home games.
Point blank, as media, if you choose to go down to the court or be courtside or, being close to those players to attend in-person media, post-game, pre-game interviews, photography, whatever it may be, we have to be, they're asking us to be fully vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated, you cannot, approach those areas. So I understand that it's going to be the same for the players. So you're just going to have to face the consequences, however dire they may be.
Yes. And again, bottom line, the NBA is trying to protect its product. The bottom line, which is to continue to make money, because they knew what happened a year the year before last when they were shortened because of COVID and everything had to go into the bubble because of COVID. And they know how much money they lost. They lost at least $1 billion when those games were missed and fans weren't in the arena. So they don't want to lose that kind of money again, Joanna. And they don't want their high profile players. Well, they don't want any one of their players to end up sick or possibly contract COVID and take that back to their families, and then it spreads throughout their families, and it just gets even worse after that, Joanna. And then we just have another explosion of COVID, and then we are where we are 2 years ago, at least when it comes to the NBA.
Right. That's exactly where the league is trying to avoid, that last place that they want to be. So of course they're going to do what they see best for the league, for their players, for their staff, and also the organizations alone too. So
absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Very, very controversial, and that's going to be unfolding some more as we get ready to launch the preseason and then the season for the NBA. That's here in just 3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks. Yep. So a lot's going to happen over the next 3 weeks, Joanne. I'm sure it's going to be tossed. It's going to be tossy and turvy. Tossy-turvy? That's the right word. Yeah, tossy-turvy. It's just going to be crazy. As crazy as it was for me to say that, that's as crazy as the situation's going to be news-wise for the NBA until they kick the season off. It's going to be wild.
Definitely. But one thing I will say, I am excited for the NBA season. I am excited to see how this season is going to unfold, seeing the Phoenix Suns, here our local team, I just very, very excited overall. There's a lot of action, and seeing how all this is going to unfold. We have, Giannis and Milwaukee, who, are the champs, and how, that affects them and coming into the season, how they will go ahead and move forward, and just so much. Ben Simmons situation, which, we know a little bit of how that's unfolding. There's a lot of the moves that happened during the off season, the trades and so forth, and I'm just very excited to see this kick off.
Me too. A lot of players signed max contracts, like Michael Porter Jr. did today. He signed a max deal with the Denver Nuggets, so he's there for at least 5 years, possible $207 million for that young man, Joanna. We know he's some back issues that's really plagued him throughout his career, even at Missouri before he even came into the NBA. But once Michael Porter is healthy, we know how good he can be for the Denver Nuggets, and that's why they're giving him that max contract. Could be $207 million if he makes one of 3 All NBA teams. Which, if he stays healthy, he'll make one of those teams, Joanna. So that brother's going to get paid majorly. 5 years, $207 million. Man, I'd like to be his. I'd love to be his agent or his accountant right now.
I'm sure that you would be very happy if you were either one of those.
Yes, ma'am.
So, all right, that wraps up our NBA talk here, and we're going to go ahead and dive right into some NFL. But before we go ahead and do that, I want to go ahead and introduce our special guest tonight, Bertrand Berry, 12-year NFL veteran, our Arizona Cardinal here in the house. How are you today, B? Thank you for joining us.
I'm doing pretty good. How you guys doing?
What's up, B-Train?
What's up, bro? How you feeling, man?
I'm good, brother. Blessed every day, my man. You know that.
Already.
Appreciate you coming on, brother.
No doubt.
So before we go ahead and get into the good, the bad, and the ugly segment that we have here every week during the football season, I want to go ahead and just do a quick recap of week 3. And I want to go ahead and start off with you, B. What do you take away from this week 3? What is like your most impressive and maybe a team that can use some improvement from what you saw?
There was a lot to be impressed with. I thought the competition, I thought special teams played a really big role in week 3. And a lot of people don't talk about special teams, but anytime that you have that third element mixed into a team, they can change the game in a heartbeat. And we saw that in a few of those games. And you saw it with San Fran and Green Bay. We saw it with the Cardinals and Jacksonville right before the half. And I think had Jacksonville been a better team, maybe that's a little bit of a different outcome. But the biggest one was obviously Baltimore and Detroit, where you have a 66-yard field goal kicked, which is an NFL record. To see him even attempt that was something major. But I love the overall competitiveness of the NFL, and I thought week 3 was really exemplary of that, and seeing a lot of close competitive games.
Do you think now that we're in week 3, because we know the first couple of weeks can be a little bit of a toss up because we don't know what we're really getting and what, how the team is going to be. Now we have had week 3 and going into week 4, that they're a little bit more established. This is okay. This is the team that we're going to get to see going forward into the season, or do you think it's still a little bit too early on to say what type of team we're getting just throughout in the NFL?
Well, in my opinion, I always broke the season down into 4 quarters. And obviously you add another game now to that, because it used to be nice and neat with 16 games. You had 4, 4, 4, 4. But now, obviously, with the extra game, you've got to add another segment to it. But I still think the first 4 games of the season are really the opportunity of the players to get themselves into shape, because say what you want about camp, it's not really camp these days. I mean, it's not what I grew up playing and participating in as far as training camp is concerned. So to me, the first few weeks are really the players getting themselves into playing shape, because they haven't had the contact in camp. They haven't had the reps on the field for preseason. So the games are usually pretty sloppy. There's usually a lot of penalties called in the first quarter of the season. But I think now, as we head into week 4, you're going to start to see what these teams are really all about.
And B, as you know, very well know, playing in the league, week 3 to week 18, teams are going to look so much different over the course of 15 more weeks. There's going to be so many ups and downs, and ebbs and flows, and injuries, and teams are going to look so different from now all the way until week 18 and once we hit the playoffs.
Without question, man. Injuries are always, unfortunately, a part of it. It's a brutal sport. We all know that when you sign up for it, but that's the risk that you take in order to have the chance of being a champion. And that's why you have 53 men on the roster, and then you have the expanded roster as far as, the practice squad. So you understand that going in that some guys are going to fall, and in order to have success, you have to have a little luck fall your way, and you've got to stay healthy for the most part. And the teams that don't have that luck and don't stay healthy are usually the ones that are watching come January.
All right. And now I have to ask, how do you see the Arizona Cardinals so far? They're 3-0 in the season, something we haven't seen since 2015, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
I may be wrong. Yes. Okay. So what's your takeaway? How do you see the Arizona Cardinals? They seems like they made a lot of progress during the offseason from last season to now. Tell me a little bit about what you see.
Well, I see this team as a opportunistic team. I think from a defensive standpoint, they've taken advantage of opportunities given to them. Looking at Tennessee, I wasn't quite sure what the game plan was for Tennessee. They just seemed unprepared for that first game. The game against Minnesota, I thought they made more plays than the Minnesota Vikings. And then when we saw this last game, they did what they needed to do against a team that it's not very good, but you get the win on the road, you overcome some adversity, and I think you're starting to see this team mature and really start to come together. I think with Kyler Murray, he's starting to embrace the role as a leader. You see him start to take that mantle on and his mannerisms and the way he carries himself. And I think the defense is going to be the biggest part of the team that needs to make that next step. They're taking those steps now, as you've seen the interceptions, pick six, and the big day for Chandler in week one. You're going to have to find guys that step up in different moments and really make plays for this defense. And so far, so good. They've taken advantage of the opportunities, as we said, and they're going to have to continue that. And they've got a really big test coming up this weekend against those Rams that are also undefeated.
Ooh.
Yes. So, B, you talked about the offense and the defense. Let's talk about the special teams. We know this team has churned its way through kickers over the years recently, and now that they have a legitimate kicker in Matt Prater, we saw what he did last week against the Sunday before last against Minnesota, kicking a 62-yarder, and then he kicked a 34-yarder on Sunday in Jacksonville, and also Andy Lee at the punting situation. To have stability at that 1/3 of your football team, that is major when it comes to the Arizona Cardinals, and you're in that NFC West division. And as we know, over the course of 18 weeks, a lot of these games are going to come down to special teams. And if you have a strong enough special teams unit or not to win you a football game, just speak on the importance of that part of the Cardinals football team being so solid.
Well, you want to have veterans and you want to have guys that are reliable, that you can depend on, and they're going to go out and do their job when their number's called. And I think for Coach Kingsbury, it actually changes the way that he may call games. As opposed to being aggressive and going forward in certain situations, maybe you flip the field and put your defense out there. And I know when I played, special teams was always my best friend, because if you had a great punter that could flip the field with just a swing of his leg, then that put us in a great position, because if you're able to make a team go 75, 80 yards, their chances of scoring points go way down, as opposed to having that ball maybe 30 yards up the field. So special teams always plays a big part, because you're talking about so much field position being exchanged in one play. And if you have a kicker and punters that can actually score you points and flip that field, that's a tremendous weapon for your defense and as well as your offense. And so those guys are just as valuable as anybody else on the roster. And the Cardinals are very fortunate to have the two kickers that they have right now.
Yeah, I am very excited to see the Cardinals and what they've been able to accomplish thus far. I still, like you said, it's a little bit early on, and and I like how you put it in four different, in quarters, in four different stages, because we know, and when there's the name that goes around, and they're called the cardiac Cardinals as well, so which sometimes can happen, get a little bit hot early in the season, and then we see them the later half that they turn out losing games, at least as of the recent seasons. So let's hope that that's not the case. But I am very excited, and I think they have improved tremendously from last season. But I do want to go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the thing that was so prevalent last year too was health at the end of the season. Health played a big part in their decline in the last part of the season, and with Kyler Murray having an injury and he wasn't the same. He wasn't that dual threat weapon that he was at the beginning of the season, where people were talking about him as a potential MVP candidate. So health is always going to be a big factor in any team and how they perform in one part of the season or the next.
Yeah. B, I've got one more before we do good, bad, and ugly. We all kicked around the question about whether Larry Fitzgerald will retire. What's going on with him? Why is Larry waiting so long to decide whether to come back to the Cardinals or whether he's going to decide to play again? So he's evidently decided not to, but the depth on this wide receiving core, you've got Rondale Moore, the young man, the Purdue Boilermaker coming in. He's been a major factor. Max Williams at that tight end position. I love the way he plays. DeAndre, even though he's dealing with a rib injury, DeAndre is still a DeAndre. Chase Edmonds, Christian Kirk, he's been blowing defenses apart. And AJ Green came in. He played really well on Sunday, led the team in receiving. Just talk, how great is it to have that depth at the wide receiving core, considering we were just like, what's the wide receiving core going to look like without Larry? What's that chemistry going to be like without the Hall of Famer out there?
Yeah, everybody was looking to see what Larry was going to do. Obviously, Larry is a legend, and he is a Hall of Famer, first ballot, and we were all fortunate enough to experience his whole career here in the Valley. I don't know what the future holds for Larry. The comments that he did make did suggest that he's closer to retirement than he is coming back. So when you're that far along in your career and you take the first couple weeks off, it's very hard to get yourself acclimated and up to game speed. So I don't know what that means, but my guess is we may have seen the last of Fitz in a football uniform, not just the Cardinal uniform or any other team. But I think once you've gotten to this point, there's only one big event left as far as your career is concerned, and it's stepping in front of that mic and giving that speech that we all had to give at some point in our career. So, but the fact that they do have a quality group in that wide receiver group, and don't underestimate the importance of Sean Jefferson, wide receiver coach. I think he's been tremendous in really holding this team and holding that position group accountable and really going in and making sure that all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted, and that they're doing their part to make sure that they are an integral part of this offense and that Kyler Murray has more than his share of weapons to throw to.
Yeah. Fortunate, hopefully that we do get to see a little bit more of Fitzgerald. It would be my, give us one more season, just as a fan. But I think I do agree with you that he is a little bit more closer to retiring more than what any of us thought. So when that day comes, when he does give his speech, I will say that I will have to have a box of Kleenex, not a one small box, Kleenex, but a box of boxes because I will be crying when that does happen.
That day is really going to hurt. It's going to hurt really badly.
Just talking about it makes me sad and want to cry already.
I think all of Phoenix will feel a certain way about that particular individual actually making that speech, because we would have all seen a career from start to finish and a brilliant career it was, and all the memories that he's given us. We can't help but tip the cap and appreciate him for what he's meant, not only to the Cardinals, but to the entire Valley. So that's not a day that I'm looking forward to, even myself as a former teammate.
Yes, no, indeed. And one thing I will be looking forward to after his retirement is his Ring of Honor when he gets for the Arizona Cardinals and gets that honor. So I was there for Kurt Warner, which was amazing to be in that presence and that vibe and that energy in that stadium. I'm looking forward for when that happens for Larry.
Mm-hmm. No doubt, no doubt about it.
All right, so go ahead and moving on to our good, bad, and ugly. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with you, Ed. What was your good?
Just my good? Okay, let's see.
Just your good. We'll take
My good.
these one at a time.
Okay. Wow, there's a lot of goods. There's a lot of greats. A good would be, I don't know. See, I want to say Chargers over Chiefs, but that's more of a good. That's that for them to come back and win, score 16 points in the fourth quarter in Kansas City to beat the Chiefs. I guess I would say that's my good, with an asterisk next to it that it could raise higher than the good. But Chargers over Chiefs, that would be my good.
For a moment, I was gonna say that sounds like a question. Are you sure that's your answer?
Yeah, so many other goods, but yeah, I'll take that. Yes.
Okay.
That is good for the Chargers to go to Kansas City and beat the Chiefs, to beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
That is
Yeah,
really, really good. Yeah, definitely. What about you, B? What's your good of week 3?
Man, there's a lot to choose from. There are a lot of great performances in week 3. Man, I'm gonna have to say unfortunately the Los Angeles Rams. I think them making a statement against the defending Super Bowl champions and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to play the way that they played against that team and to win by double digits. I think to win is one thing, but I think to win by double digits and knowing that game really wasn't as close as maybe the score indicated, it was a very impressive performance, especially for Matthew Stafford. And unfortunately, we're going to have to deal with him this coming week. But what they were able to do really showed that they are a team that everybody was leery of, and they gave you all the reasons why. With an asterisk, I'll put in Green Bay going up to San Fran or Santa Clara and getting that win against the 49ers. That was good because it helped us in the standings.
Yes.
Yes.
And I am with you on that, actually, on both of them. But my good that I have, out of week 3 is the Rams as well. I have to give it up, to the team. Like you said, double digits. They improved to 3-0 against the GOAT, Tom Brady. And it was a pretty, just looking at the numbers, looking at the yards, looking at through and their stats, they were pretty evenly matched up, and they held the possession, ball possession about evenly as well. So it was great. Just not good enough for the Bucs, unfortunately, and it was a good outcome for the Rams. But with that asterisk too, with Aaron Rodgers, and I put this on my social media, I think you might have seen it, where he proved me wrong, sort of, because there was a comment that I made in last week's show where saying that that Jimmy was the better quarterback, at least to that time being, and that could potentially overcome Aaron Rodgers. So, but those 30 seconds, a little bit over 30 seconds, I think it was 37 seconds, those made the difference, and Aaron Rodgers does what Aaron Rodgers does.
Yeah, see, when they scored, I saw 37 left on the clock. I'm like, 49ers are done. That's 37 seconds is like 3.
It's an eternity.
It is.
An eternity.
Yeah.
For Aaron, oh my gosh. I mean, 2 plays are already in field goal range, B, and Mason Crosby just trots out there and kicks a field goal. I mean, he's automatic from 50 plus. So, well, game's over.
I just didn't understand why the San Francisco 49ers didn't play back further and let everything be, thrown in front of them. But, it's Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's going to make any coverage look bad because he's got that kind of accuracy. So, you should have him.
Seriously, yeah. I totally agree. All right, now moving on to the bad. I'm going to go ahead and kick off with you, B, on the bad.
I'm going to go to Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Kansas City Chiefs have come back to the pack, and I know a lot of people thought that this team was a runaway favorite in the AFC. If you take away a couple fluke plays in that Cleveland game, this team is 0-3. And right now, defense is non-existent in Kansas City, and no disrespect to the former Cardinal Honey Badger and the rest of that crew, but they do not look good. Chris Jones on the outside doesn't look like the same player as he was when he was playing inside. They can't stop anybody right now. And I know they're asking a lot of Patrick Mahomes to work his magic on the offensive side, but he has to dang near play perfect in order for this team to win. And I just think that's a lot to ask week in and week out. And looking at that division, they're going to have their work cut out because you got the Raiders undefeated, you got the Broncos undefeated, and the Chargers are right there. So it's not a good look for the Kansas City Chiefs right now. They got a lot of work to do in the next 14 weeks.
I totally agree with you. I'm going to piggyback off of you and I have to ask, did you look at my notes before the show? Because that's exactly what I have, as well as the bad for the Chiefs.
Great minds think alike. We'll just say it like that.
Yep. Because pretty much everything you said is pretty much what I was going to say. So that's why I say, did you look at my notes?
Queen, I'm sorry. I did not mean to steal your thought. Please charge it to my head, not my heart. I just try to give great, information for you guys.
Right? No, hey, great minds think alike is what I say.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I do think Patrick Mahomes, the alien, like I like to call him, has his work cut out for him. 1 and 2, it's definitely not something that I expected for them coming out of the gate. But the Chargers, they're a pretty great team as well. And they've just been able to put some work out there and do some stuff that sometimes you just kind of like scratch your head. It's like, what just happened? As well, their coach, I just have to give them props too. But that's my bad is the Chiefs, and it does have me worried for going into the next few games, and like you're saying, who they're facing off. But Ed, what is your bad?
My bad is the Pittsburgh Steelers. That opening win against Buffalo, when they rallied back, scored 20 straight against Buffalo, and then they looked like garbage against Las Vegas 2 weeks ago, and then a few days ago against Cincinnati, they looked like straight trash again. Now Mike Tomlin's, he's got to answer questions about, is this team falling apart, or is this team already giving up on themselves? And at 1 and 2, and it's not a good situation in Pittsburgh. And I don't know if it's Big Ben. There were question marks as to whether he would come back, whether we would take a pay cut, to come back and play with the Steelers again, or would the Steelers even want to bring him back? Should they move on and go to Mason Rudolph, or even give Dwayne Haskins a chance? But the quarterback situation is not working there. Clearly, you've got 3 options that won't get the job done. And I'm sure Steeler Nation is not happy with where their football team is right now, losing 2 straight home games, and they're getting ready to go to Green Bay. They're getting ready to take your guys on, Joanna. So it's not good. And they got Denver after that. They've got Seattle after that before the bye week. So it could get really bad for them. They could be 1 and 4. They could be 1 and 5 at the bye week.
They're going to get ripped apart.
Could they be 1 and 5 with those teams coming up? Denver's good.
Yes, they could, because I hate to say this, but Ben is done. And there was a moment in that game where he threw an interception and he tried to make a tackle, and he just laid there. And you just know, as an athlete, sometimes you can literally see that moment where you're at the realization that, damn, my time is up in this league. And I mean, he's had a tremendous career. He's a Hall of Famer. He will go down as one of the greats. But at this point, I think the Steelers did their fan base a disservice by not addressing the quarterback situation more thoroughly than what they did this past offseason. I think they had to have known that Ben, at the end of last year, wasn't looking like the old Big Ben. And for him to come out and play the way that he's played thus far is very alarming. Think about this. Mike Tomlin in his entire tenure has never had a losing season. This could be his first losing season of his career as a head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That speaks to consistency and longevity. But, I mean, there's so many questions on the offensive line with T.J. Watt, who they've just paid a lot of money. The quarterback position, there's too many questions in the important places for this team to really feel like they have a chance to compete. And you think about the division with Baltimore there and Cleveland looking to kick dirt on them. I just don't see how they get out of this one alive.
And it's really weird to see the Steelers not running the football. They had 45 yards rushing against Cincinnati on Sunday. We know historically Pittsburgh has been one of the strongest running teams in the National Football League dating back to the 70s. So for them to have less than 50 yards rushing, that's shocking.
It is, and I don't see any relief in sight because, again, just look at the division that they're in. They just lost to the Bengals. the Cleveland Browns are probably the most talented roster in the NFL. In Baltimore, we know what Lamar Jackson has been doing and what he's capable of doing. So I don't see them being able to climb out of this because their schedule just doesn't allow it. And I don't have any sympathy for the Steelers for obvious reasons. We won't go back into that, but it is what it is, and they're going to find themselves in a very unfamiliar spot in 2021.
All right, now I have to go into the ugly. But for me, I'm going to change that to abysmal. And I have to give that to the Bears. That was just beyond what my eyes could even just looking at the recap of their game is just horrible. 47 total yards. And that's just unacceptable. One passing yard. Like, was this even a game to begin with? And now they fall to 2-1. They lost against the Cleveland Browns, which you just mentioned, being one of the teams to beat out there. And one of the things is the Browns are surprising me thus far. So I just have to give this to the Bears, and I think they're just falling apart, and they're just, I don't know, they're just being destroyed. So I don't have an ugly, I just have an abysmal. So Ed.
So I will go in that abysmal hole with you and say that the Chicago Bears, you mentioned 1.1 yards per play. That's what they averaged on Sunday against Cleveland. Justin Fields sacked 9 times. And now Matt Nagy's talking about all my quarterbacks are in competition for the game on Sunday. Nick Foles, Andy Dalton, and Justin Fields. Does Matt Nagy know what he's doing, B?
No, he doesn't.
Okay.
No.
If PLR were here, he would rip them a new one. You know that.
Oh, yeah. Like, he already did. Like, I think week 1. I don't know if you heard that show or the audio, Ed. Like, he was just like, he was the first one who said it. And ever since he said it, it's just been the talk ever since. And yeah, he would be ripping them a whole other one apart if he was here tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry, B. Go ahead with your thoughts on the Bears.
No, I just thought, when you look at that situation, it just looked like they didn't have a plan. And you threw the young man out there knowing what his skill set is, and you did none of those things to accentuate his skill set. It was almost as if you were coming with a game plan for Peyton Manning as opposed to a Justin Fields. And the young man can run, move him out of the pocket. He can run with the football, come with the RPOs. You did absolutely none of that. And you let their offensive lineman, who could stop me right now, go against that defensive lineman, basically, 5-on-4, and it was a no contest. It was a no-my situation. When you saw the 9 sacks and the 1 net passing yard, that the young man didn't have a chance. And I think for Matt Nagy, this could be the potential second young quarterback that he could ruin. I think at some point, if you're the Chicago Bears, you've got to make a decision to cut ties with Matt Nagy, because if you continue to let him have the keys to this young quarterback, I think we'll see a premature end to the career of Justin Fields.
Yeah, I don't know how far I see him going. I don't know how much further they'll let him go before they actually pull the plug.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and go with my abysmal. My abysmal is all of the rookie quarterbacks. They have all been abysmal, and between them, they only have 1 win thus far in the first 3 weeks of the season. And everybody talked about how this class could challenge the 1983 draft class with Elway and Marino and all of those guys. And you forget that these are grown men that they're playing against, and playing in the NFL is very difficult. And just because they had success in college and they were able to do some things, that doesn't mean that it's going to translate into the NFL. Now, I look at the Jets and what's going on with their quarterback. I mean, I don't know what their game plan is either. It almost seems as if they picked these guys and then didn't know what to do with them. Like, okay, I've got this shiny new toy, but how do I put it together? Like, they're still reading the instruction manual on how to put these new toys together. And they've had enough time to figure this thing out, and the results on the field have not shown what we thought that they would be. And it just shows that it's very difficult to come in and play as a rookie. And so I'm not concerned long term. I think all of these young men are going to figure it out. But right now, it looks as if that entire class should have sat on the sidelines with a clipboard and learned their first year.
All right, and I have to ask here, we have just a couple more minutes on our NFL segment, and looking ahead to week 4, do you think that there will be any teams that will be undefeated? And then second question is, with week 4 up ahead also, is what are you looking most forward to, or what is there a matchup that you're like, oh, this is the one to watch and you're just excited for?
Well, I'll say this: there has to be an undefeated in the Rams-Cardinals game because they're both undefeated. So somebody's got to win it. I look forward to that matchup. The one that everybody's going to be talking about ad nauseum, obviously, is going to be New England and Tampa Bay. Tom Brady going back to New England to play against his old team that he was there for 20 years, 9 Super Bowl appearances, 6 wins, the old coach, and it's just brace yourselves, because if you look at any TV outlet and anybody covering the NFL, I promise you, however long they have, if they have an hour, at least half of it to 40 minutes is going to be about the New England Patriots up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I can promise you that right now, because that is by far and away the biggest story of week 4. They've been talking about this since the schedules first came out, and now we're here. They've already had promos for it during week 3, for goodness sake. So that's the one that I'm looking most forward to watching.
Yes, indeed. I agree with you. I think those two are my highlights for week 4. I don't know that I will be standing once Sunday is over, to be honest.
Will you have some adult beverages or something? Is adult beverages in your future? Is that what you're saying?
There may or may not be. But yes, it's going to be one to definitely brace for.
No doubt.
But before we do let you go, let our wonderful people know where it is that they can go ahead and find you at in social media.
Okay, so you could go on Instagram at TrainStation1, the same handle for Twitter, and follow and just out here helping those young guys reach their potential and their level, and showing them how to go get after quarterback, something that I did during my time in the NFL. So just having a lot of fun with that, and really just enjoying life one day at a time.
That's what it's all about in the end, right? Enjoying life.
That's what it's all about.
But yes, you do awesome work with those kids. Keep doing the great work that you do. And thank you for joining us tonight. And we'll definitely be having you on as the NFL season does progress.
Thanks for having me. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, B.
Great Bertrand Berry just joined us and downloaded a whole lot of nuggets for us, and just so much talent and so much knowledge there with him. But we are on the cusp end of the show, Ed. We're gonna have to run through this real quickly. We have MLB that I want to touch on very, very quick. And then I want to go ahead and top it off with our amazing badass women in the WNBA. But MLB, the news of the day has been with the legendary, the iconic broadcaster Jaime Harin, who is retiring after the 2022 season. He calls the games for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He just has been with the team since for how many years? 64
19,
years.
yeah, 1959.
Yes, for 64 years, he has called an immense amount of World Series games. Top, right now at 30, could potentially be a 31. We will see how far these Dodgers make it. 30 All-Star games, Ed, throughout his career, and 22 no-hitters.
And three perfect games.
And 3 perfect games,
yes,
yes.
Sandy Koufax, Tom Browning, and Dennis Martinez. Wow.
That is just talking about him and mentioning his milestones of career he's had. It just gives me chills and just makes me even nervous to talk about this tremendous person that he is. He's just been so integral with in LA in the community, throughout the industry, and just wish him the very best. I know he's going to have a tremendous season, just as our talented, recently retired broadcaster for the Los Angeles Dodgers, Ed. You know who I'm talking about?
Vin?
Yes, Vin Scully.
Of course. The great Vin.
Yeah. So I know he's going to have, it's going to be a party throughout the season with, his goodbye tour through the MLB for 2022. But
and it was incredible what he and his son were able to do. They were the first father-son duo to broadcast baseball on Spanish language radio for Major League Baseball. So he and his son were pioneers in this industry. And for the fact that they did it for such a long time, Joanna, they sustained it for decades and decades. That just shows, the longevity and how great they were at their craft.
Yes, definitely. And his son retired before him, before the elder. So it's just such a great story. If you don't know or not familiar with his story, please go ahead and do check it out. And he's just such a great guy, tremendous guy, and just always great to hearing him broadcast, a baseball game. But I'm excited for him, and it's just, an honor to, to have him in being in, in the same, industry, and being able to witness a lot of his stuff. So I know he's going to be honored tremendously throughout the 2022 season.
Oh, no question.
And just real quick here, just touching on the postseason race, we have some more teams who have clinched. Let's see. I'm so sorry. My computer is doing stuff that I do not want it to do.
Well, we know Tampa Bay's clinched. We know the White Sox clinched their division. So Tampa won the AL East again. Milwaukee clinched. St. Louis clinched a playoff spot tonight with their 17th straight victory, Joanna. Unbelievable. They are
17. That 17. Is amazing. We have the Chicago White Sox, Milwaukee, San Francisco, and Dodgers there. And then we go to our wild card. I am still on edge with my Red Sox. We have Seattle. Those tables have been turning, continuously. It's just like it's just like a merry-go-round. You don't know who's going to be on that, those top two, or especially number two, because it just keeps changing day after day, week after week. So we're right now in that final stretch, last week of the regular season. We have Boston number 2, New York Yankees at number 1, 2 games ahead. We have Seattle sitting at number 3, tied with Toronto at 1 game behind Boston. So anything can happen there. Win, lose, every single run matters at this time. At least that's in the American League.
Yes. And then we go to the National League.
Yes, the National League, we have the Braves. They're there to get that division title for the East, but we have the wild card. We have the Dodgers and St. Louis Cardinals. So it's going to make for a very, very exciting week nonetheless.
Oh, absolutely. It seems like it's going to be the Dodgers and St. Louis. Cincinnati's 6 games behind St. Louis. I think it's pretty much wrapped up. Dodgers and St. Louis for that wild card, which will
It
be a
is.
great game. That'll be a great game out in LA.
That will be. So I know next week we'll have our predictions, have a segment for that and what we see, how we see the postseason unfolding. But turning the page, I should say, we have our wonderful WNBA women who have kicked off their semifinals, and the Seattle Storm and the Phoenix Mercury. That was tonight. Actually ended up going to overtime today. And Diana Taurasi does what Diana Taurasi does. She came through. And what's it called? Actually, no. I still lied.
It's
Right now.
the Mercury and the Aces
The
are playing.
Mercury and the Aces, yes.
Yeah, they moved on to the
I'm talking
semifinals.
about Sunday. Yes, I'm talking about Sunday. So
I thought you
sorry.
were talking about Sunday. That's okay. I thought you were talking about Sunday's game. I was like, we
Talking
played
about
in
Sunday because I
Seattle.
know I had said that they kicked off today. So I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
hold on.
I was like, wait a minute. They played in Seattle on Sunday, not today.
Yes, they played Seattle on Sunday. They went ahead and took the win there. Oh my gosh, it's been a whirlwind. But yes, on Sunday, they're playing the Mercury Aces as we speak now. And we know those Aces, they are scrappy and they are out there to fight. So I am really nervous about this, Ed, with the
Me too.
Mercury Aces.
Yeah. Bill Laimbeer's coach team, they're scrappy just like Bill was with the Detroit Pistons. So he's bringing that bad boys kind of mentality. I don't know if you want to call them bad girls, but they're playing some bad basketball, but in a good way. You know what I mean? Bad being good.
Girls.
Yeah, tough girls. Yeah, tough girls. Tough girls basketball. Yeah, that's going to be a tough series. It's up 50. Aces are up 52-49 at the half. They outscored the Mercury by 12 in the second quarter. So it's always just like the NBA. It's a game of runs, Joanna. Who's going to come out on top of all these runs? Who's going to be the one to outlast the other one? And the Mercury are going to be in a tough game, in a tough series of 5.
Yes, it's definitely going to be tough because seeing that final last game of the season, regular season with the Mercury and the Aces, that was one to be ready and almost call 911, dial 911. I'm not gonna lie, that was a roller coaster of a game, and I have a feeling that this series is going to be exactly that. Just lost by 1, and Mercury have been just winning by 1 their last couple of games until Sunday when they went ahead of the Storm by 5 points. Now again in overtime. It's gonna give me a cardiac arrest. But also we have the Sky who did win in overtime today, 101-95.
In Connecticut. What a great win! What a great way to start that series. They went on the road.
Yes. So
Wow.
when we know winning on the road, it's not easy. You can ask the Mercury just that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for this WNBA semifinals, and I just want to say the WNBA, the ratings have been up.
That was me.
That's all good. They've gone up, but roughly 50%. They do have more games on national TV, but they're not getting enough credit. They're not getting the acknowledgement I believe that they should be getting. WNBA or women basketball players in general. There's a couple of stories that I read yesterday. Just even just seeing and being part of that game on last Thursday. Sophie Cunningham for the Phoenix Mercury, she totally went off. That was a Sophie night, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh," wanting to get her jersey, and is this their their gear is just not so easily accessible as when it is for men's. So I know WNBA does not get enough credit, and I think that should definitely improve that for the next season and the seasons to come. Not just have one good WNBA season, and a player have one good season, and from there don't give them the credit that they deserve, or team. And there's, I think, a lot of work that needs to be done because these women, like I said, they are badass and they don't get the recognition that they deserve. And we have the situation also, with the Mercury not playing in their home arena. What I understand the situation, circumstances, but you have a basketball team, you have an arena. I believe that they should play there. That's one of, that's what I will say on that end. But this is just, shedding a little bit of light with the WNBA versus the NBA.
Yeah, and it's all about marketing. And you mentioned how the ratings are up, and as long as the WNBA continues to put out a good product, because it's actually a great product with the young ladies, they're just fighting their guts out, just like the men do, and their counterparts in the NBA. These women, they play their hearts out, and we see it every single game. You saw it a few days ago over at Grand Canyon University. How great that atmosphere was in that gym. It's crazy. It's going to be even crazier once they get back here for their home game in this series against the Aces. You're going to cover that game on Sunday. You'll see how crazy it is over at ASU once they lace them up and they throw that ball up for the first time over in Tempe. How crazy how crazy the fans are going to be. It's playoff basketball, whether it's men, women, doesn't matter who it is. Playoff basketball brings out the best in everybody.
Yes, it definitely does. I'm excited. It's been a great WNBA season, even better playoff with these amazing women in the semifinals. They're just these are gonna be one to remember. I know definitely I will. But that's our show, Ed.
Boy, the hour's flown by, hasn't it?
It sure has. It always does. What they say, time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely. Yes.
But before we go, let our awesome people know where it is that they can go ahead and find you.
Of course, right here on Inside Sports Talk, on Twitter at EdCole43, Instagram at EdwardCole301. As I ponder, what's the next one? Oh, yeah, Facebook at Edward Cole. And when I get on Brother PLR show on the Sports Cave. So there's so many different avenues, whether it's ACU football or Northern Arizona Wranglers football. There's so many different ways to catch me in a broadcast venue near you.
There you go. I think you got them all.
Yeah.
You can find me, Joanna Rosalie, on both Instagram and Twitter at JRosalie. That's JROSALYE. And you can find Inside Sports Talk, on Inside Sports Network on our website. That is insidesports.net. Follow us on Instagram at Inside Sports Net and on Twitter at Inside Sports. Add an extra S at the end. Always be sure to follow us, download from wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, and you can always also find us on KSRN. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Until next time, this was Inside Sports Talk.